This video is going to delve into some serious and potentially triggering topics. While I do encourage you to listen to this video as I believe it to be important, do not push yourself beyond your own comfort levels. That said, let's begin. It's very likely that if you're a part of the ASMR community, you may have heard about drama surrounding certain individuals. Personally, I don't like using the term drama because to me, drama is petty and lacking consequence. Unlike that which we'll be discussing, which is serious to the point of having legal ramifications. For those of you left in the dark, for the past several months, there have been multiple content creators accused of grooming minors, pedophilia, or otherwise being predatory online. It's gotten to the point where a number of people have expressed distrust and a desire to leave the community as a whole, which is greatly unfortunate. Now, I could list the names of those to watch out for in this video, but depending on when you're watching this, these people might be long gone, going by different names now, or being replaced by new offenders. So instead of making an expose video on anyone in particular, I wanted to make a video talking about why I think it's so predominant in the community, what we can do to mitigate the risks, and how you can protect yourself online. Before I get into it, I want to make the disclaimer that I am not an expert on cybersecurity, nor do I have much former knowledge about this topic. These are simply my opinions and speculations based on what I'm kind of seeing as someone within the community. I also want to make one thing very, very clear. If you have been a victim of a predator, groomer, or other sort of abuser, it is not your fault, and I don't want this video in any way to insinuate that. The victim is never at fault, the abuser always is. But I can't make a video for predators on how not to be a predator, because they already know how. Just don't be a predator. In fact, it's so easy that I've done it for all 25.5 years of my life, and I'm a goddamn failure. So even though I'm providing tips for what you can do in the future, please don't go thinking that you're to blame for anything that happened. Alright, enough preamble, let's start. The major question on many people's minds right now is why does it seem like the ASMR community has such a predator problem? Why is it that we're seeing so many content creators be exposed for pedophilia or grooming, whether it be viewers or fellow content creators? The ASMR community is not alone in having problems with groomers and pedophiles popping up. Sadly, it's something that's been coming up a lot all across YouTube and other social media. I've seen this issue come up within art circles, gaming communities, with streamers, and even with once incredibly popular YouTubers who have since fallen from grace. But I do think there are some unique problems that we face as a community that need to be examined under a lens. Let's start with number 1, the content. ASMR has become this sort of catch-all umbrella term for seemingly any sort of visual or auditory video used to comfort or relax the viewer in some way. But the line of what is and isn't ASMR has faded within recent history. Let me explain. Traditionally, there is the typical relaxing white noise type of video, something you might use for meditation or to fall asleep to. Maybe it's not titled ASMR, but it does serve a very similar purpose. From that similar vein, sometimes natural real-life situations such as massages or haircuts can also be relaxing and produce ASMR, causing some people to focus their content around this sort of organic ASMR concept. Some videos could even be unintentional ASMR, producing an ASMR response but made with a different purpose in mind, such as some medical exam or artisanal videos. Then you have what we often think of when we hear ASMR, a video of someone talking gently to and engaging with the listener in some sort of fictitious setting while using props or actions to trigger ASMR. But then we have what I do. Sure, sometimes my videos can be more gentle and soothing, but the listener engagement is what really takes the front seat and is more for storytelling and escapism. I'd call this an audio roleplay more than I would call it ASMR. Sometimes, though, these roleplays don't involve the listener at all and instead play more like an audiobook. An example of this kind of audio drama is the collaboration I did with Unrivaled VA. Lastly, we have spicy ASMR, which could range from being suggestive, such as my buddy Johnny Static's shower video, to being sexually explicit, such as those you very often see content creators putting on Patreon. Let me say that all of this content is completely valid, and I'm a fan of all of it. However, if we used so many different terms, it could be really confusing to listeners and would make our content even harder to find within the YouTube algorithm. Furthermore, what happens if you have a video that could technically fall under multiple of these rough categories? Or how do you even define yourself as a creator if you upload a variety of content that's completely across the spectrum? So instead of making matters complicated, it was all named the same thing, ASMR. But because they share a name, what happens now is people looking for this could accidentally stumble onto this. I know I've done that before on a channel where the videos weren't labeled well or age restricted. Also, communities that theoretically could be very different could now have more commingling despite being completely different demographics. Speaking of those communities, number 2, the listeners. Based on my experience in analytics, I hypothesize that ASMR watchers typically have certain qualities about them that might make them more vulnerable to or targeted by predators. Firstly, it seems as though the majority of the community is young and female or assigned female at birth, and both of these groups are prime desired targets by many groomers. I predominantly make content for gay men. Despite this, the majority of my viewership has consistently been women. I also know many other gay ASMRtists with similar stats. Not a complaint, just an observation. Additionally, the age of viewers I try to get is typically above the age of 20. The only content I've ever uploaded that might be more fitting for a younger demographic would be the prom video, which was a script that was gifted to me by someone, and the father supporting you for coming out as trans video, which even then could technically be for an older audience too. According to YouTube Studio, the majority of my watchers at any given point in time is between the ages of 18 and 24. Now, this might seem okay given my target demographic is 20 up, but let's not take things at face value and look deeper. The most active members of my channel, excluding close friends, whether it be in my comment sections, showing up to my streams, or on my Discord server, before it basically became a gay graveyard, seems to be minors. So given these statistics and knowing how some children are, often by their own admission, mind you, I have reason to suspect that some of these accounts are either freshly 18 or completely fake and used to gain access to age-restricted videos. And that might be a wild accusation, but I know too many youngins that read fanfic and use yaoi terms like top, bottom, seme, and uke way too much. So I'm on to y'all. While we're talking about kids, another issue is that if anything should happen to one of these children, I feel as though they'd be very likely to hide it from their parents. Many websites discussing internet safety mention monitoring your child's usage and diffusing any shell game tactics they might employ. But I feel as though the typical response of a parent is to cut off access to the internet or certain sites and applications, rather than explain to their child why a certain person is dangerous or how to be better equipped and protected going forward. This fear of being judged, restricted, or alienated from friends they might not otherwise have might just be what keeps them quiet. Also, in the case of the LGBT ASMR community, I know many youth are in the closet and can't open up to their parents about what they're watching and posting without some level of risk. Similarly, a lot of people also watch ASMR as a way of escaping or coping when they're in a place of weakness. Many viewers, myself included, have admitted to feeling depressed, lonely, or otherwise troubled, and seek out these types of videos for comfort and reassurance in addition to entertainment. Unfortunately, it's these kinds of vulnerabilities that are able to be taken advantage of by those who pretend to be empathetic to pull potential victims in. And while I know many children have yet to learn what is and isn't socially accepted, there's even a level of social ineptitude, awkwardness, and inappropriate behavior among some adults within the community. I've seen several adults make socially unacceptable statements or requests, be weirdly pushy despite being told no, not understand certain social cues, or get way too attached to a person too quickly. This could be in part due to what I mentioned previously about different people coming from different places of weakness depending on their background. Alternatively, maybe it's due to that awkward blending of different ASMR watcher groups that I mentioned within the first point, which could lead to people conducting themselves in a way that's fine for one setting, but wrong for the one that they're currently in. Number 3, the creator connection. Okay, so that last section ran quite long, so I'm going to keep this one comparably brief. I'm not shattering any new ground by saying that people get attached to their favorite creators. The relationship between content creator and viewer is largely parasocial. Fans are prone to seeing their idols in a favorable light, and many would willingly vie for their attention. But this leads to a power imbalance. Content creators have the power to win people over because of their clout, prestige, or any promises of other benefits, whether they be social or material. But influence can be a dangerous thing when in the wrong hands. It becomes a tool for manipulation. When misused, you suddenly have the intimidating threat of being called out, canceled, or even having many undying fans coming after you regardless of logic or truth. This is why so many people are afraid to speak out against someone, especially if they're a larger YouTuber. This is also why, even in cases with an adult victim in the toxic relationship, we would still condemn that creator for irresponsibly taking advantage of that power imbalance. I'd argue too that the attachment some people might have with ASMRtists could be stronger than other communities. Remember earlier how I mentioned a big factor of ASMR videos is listener engagement? When you watch a content creator, streamer, or VTuber, very often they are speaking generally to a crowd or addressing different individuals live. But when you're being pulled into the story of an ASMR video, when fantasy starts to overtake reality, it feels almost personal. It's an individual experience. The character is talking to you, making you feel special. It's a very egocentric thing, because regardless of how many other viewers there are, for the time, it feels as though no one else is having that same intimate moment. Having heard everything so far, I'm sure some of you are thinking that no one can be trusted. My answer to that is yes, but mostly no. I like to believe that the majority of people are fundamentally good. I've interacted with dozens of people throughout my 3 years on YouTube, and despite making a few enemies, I have formed many positive connections. You just have to be realistic and err on the side of caution. Sometimes we do have a heartbreaking situation in which someone we trusted, whether online or in person, does something morally evil or otherwise becomes a piece of shit. I know that firsthand. But that being a possibility shouldn't keep you from interacting with anyone ever. Humans aren't predictable black and white creatures. It's a part of life. The best thing to do is watch for warning signs and act accordingly. So with all that said, what can we do as a community, both as content creators and as viewers, to try and remedy the problems we've discussed in order to keep people safe? In general, I do believe that if you see something, you should say something. You don't have to overly police or publicly lambast a person who perhaps just doesn't know any better, but don't hesitate to call it out and nip it in the bud early on. Starting with the issues around content, for one, I understand trying to make a channel E for everyone while advertising to the spicy 18+ market gets you views and a potentially more sustainable revenue stream. So long as it falls in line with YouTube's terms of service and monetization rules, I don't think we can accurately make hard judgments about what should be uploaded where, how far is too far, etc. But I do think we could do better at ensuring that we properly and clearly label and age restrict our own content as needed. Most content creators already do this and even have 18+ exclusive Twitters, Discords, and Patreons, but there are some who don't, and I see that as blatant negligence. If you are underage, it's important to then respect and stay away from spaces not meant for you. Most websites, including YouTube, have in their terms of service that you must be at least 13 to have an account. Any younger than that, and you should not. If you are a minor, don't try to enter 18+ spaces. It's as much for your comfort and protection as it is ours. Plus, it's far healthier for you in the long run. Trust me on this, it's not worth it. When it comes to individual protections, right off the bat, you should always be wary of who you're interacting with. If they're making requests from you, giving things freely, or making offers that seem too good to be true, be skeptical about it. Even if it seems harmless, some people may use what seems like generosity as leverage against you, saying things like, I did this for you, but you won't do this other thing for me. Secondly, it's common knowledge that you shouldn't share your private information online, but also try not to overshare your insecurities and vulnerabilities. Sharing information very generally or with friends is one thing, but it's shocking how many people, right out the gate, have willingly shown me their entire hand completely unprompted. When you expose certain personal problems, a groomer can use that information either as blackmail or as a way of pushing the right buttons to either break you down psychologically or get you to trust them more and draw you closer. Even as a content creator myself, I've also learned to abide by this next tip, and that is stick to your guns, set your boundaries, and don't break them. That last part is especially important because if you show any wavering at all, even if just one time, that's not a boundary for you, that's a suggestion. And even if you don't want to do it again, that person or those people are going to keep on trying because they got through once, so they know it's possible, and they're going to keep pounding on that wall. No is no. If they don't respect your refusal, that's a major red flag. And it is okay to pull the plug whenever you need to. If you can't seem to get through to them, if they keep making you uncomfortable, if they keep saying that you're the problem, if they keep repeating behaviors that you have said you disliked, or if they're always trying to get pity, it's probably best for you to get away from them. You don't owe them anything. You can leave them on red or block them. And if you feel like you are trapped and you can't do that, that's when you need to get help 100%. On the content creator side of things, if you're interacting with a creator as a fan or as a cohort, the first thing to remember is that the person you see in videos is just a character. You never know the person behind the mask, and they're not entitled to give you any info. Along with that, don't ignore problematic behaviors, regardless of who's doing them. For a real-life example of this, I recall one instance in which I called out a content creator on Twitter because they engaged with a problematic individual, spreaded misinformation about that person as being harmless, and then proceeded to play as the victim. From then on, I had that person pinned as sketchy AF, and sure enough, fast forward till now, they allegedly groomed multiple minors. So don't turn a blind eye or make excuses for bad behavior, because then people don't get held accountable. Do I think there's hope for the ASMR community? Yes, absolutely. All platforms and groups will have bad eggs, that's a guarantee. The best we can do is rally together, spread the word when things go south, and inform people how to keep each other safe. If you do not feel that you can mentally handle being a part of this community right now as a creator or as a fan, you are not obligated to stay. Take care of yourself first. You can always come back later when you feel more at ease, or enjoy the content quietly without interacting within the community. I believe I've said all I really have to say on this issue. Let me know if you think anything I said was flawed or missed, and perhaps I'll add an addendum under a pinned comment. Thanks for watching. See you all next time with hopefully something brighter.